Good morning, and welcome to the June 18th, 2025 meeting of the Knoxville Historic Zoning Commission. This meeting is being broadcast on several TV stations, so please remember to speak clearly and directly into the microphone. We will now do the roll call.
Good morning. For the record, the Knox County Historic Zoning Commission has no business this month and will not meet. So for the city of Knoxville, Commissioner Blackburn,
Present.
Commissioner Eason,
Here.
Commissioner Bradley,
Present.
Commissioner Kessler is excused, Commissioner Hearns,
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Here.
Commissioner Randazzo,
Here.
Commissioner Tillman,
Here.
Commissioner Kloss.
Here.
That's 8 present, ma'am.
Thank you. We will now do the swearing in of speakers. Somebody's talking also.
I think it was just a button on the computer.
Okay. If you wish to speak on an item, please stand now and answer "I do" to the following affirmation. I solemnly affirm that the testimony that I am about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. We're asking all speakers to please keep your comments to 5 minutes, your presentations. We also ask the speakers give their names and addresses when you approach the podium. The appeals process, the appeals to any decisions that's made today can be made in Chancery Court within 60 days of the date of this meeting. We will now do the approval of last month's meeting.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Thanks. We'll do staff reports.
Okay, the level 1 certificates of appropriateness issued since the last meeting. At 1909 Washington Avenue, the replacement in kind of an asphalt shingle roof. At 2112 Washington Avenue, the replacement in kind of an asphalt shingle roof as well. At 1025 Eleanor Street, there are repair and replacement in kind to the existing wooden siding and skirt boards on the house and garage. At 1127 Eleanor Street, the installation of new in-kind wood siding associated with a plumbing repair on the exterior of the building. And then at the Miller's Building, individual landmark, the applicant is moving an existing sign within the existing building. It's the Cruise Farm ice cream cone sign. And then a new sign that will match the design, size, and illumination of the existing will be installed on the Union Avenue elevation. And that is it.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. We'll move now to our level 2 certificates of appropriateness. Our first one is in Fairmont area. Lindsay, can you give us the details?
Yes. So this is the installation of a small addition on the rear of the building. And so you can see that called out in gray here. And then the section that is called out in blue on the plan here is the additional structure there. So the addition will extend the existing gable roof massing of the rear elevation. It will have a concrete block foundation clad in brick veneer to match the existing. The siding will use a fiber cement shake siding to match the existing house. And then in terms of the exterior, this is the rear elevation. This is just a relatively old street view of the house. The application does include 2 design options on the rear elevation. So one has a projecting garden window unit, which you can see in a section here. And then the other one just does not have one. The second proposal doesn't include that window. So some of the findings, the addition meets the design guidelines for size, placement, and design, and it won't be visible from the street. And then the projecting garden window doesn't reflect the typical double hung form recommended by the guidelines for a minimal traditional house, but that window will be minimally visible from the right of way, if visible at all, and it does not detract. So you can see this is an interior lot here, and it does not detract from the house's overall integrity. So staff's recommending approval of 6025 HCS submitted, and that includes both of the options proposed by the applicant.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present? And if so, would you like to add anything? No. Okay, thank you. Is there any neighborhood information?
I apologize. I didn't receive any neighborhood input.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions or concerns? If not, do you want to propose a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
Second.
It's been approved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to our second case at 6501 Kingston Pike, the Norwood Individual Landmark.
All right, so this case is for a new wall sign at a bank on Kingston Pike within the Knollwood Historic Landmark Overlay. The application included the replacement of 2 tenant panel signs, which was approved administratively. The applicant is proposing a 13.5-foot wide by 7.5 feet tall channel letter wall sign with 101 square feet of total area to be installed in the tympanum, which is that gable field above the pediment. The design guidelines specifically state that no sign can exceed 5 feet in height and 40 feet in area, so the sign is approximately 2.5 times larger than the maximum permitted. Additionally, the placement of the sign is inappropriate. The building was built after the overlay was added to the property and was designed to intentionally reference Knollwood's neoclassical architecture as recommended by the design guidelines for new construction. The architrave was also designed to be a sign band and was used as such by the 2 previous businesses in the building. The placement of the sign in the tympanum is inappropriate as it obscures architectural details such as the sculptural fan that were included to meet the design guidelines. And in the opinion of staff, the placement does not, quote, respect the historic character of Knollwood and its site as outlined in the guidelines. So for these reasons, staff is recommending denial of Certificate 6E25HC.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant, would you like to speak?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Trey. I'm here on behalf of Apex Bank, Tennessee Sign Company. Sorry?
Can you please say your name and address and then make sure it's written on the paper on the
Sure.
podium?
Paper here, sure. Yeah, so my name is Trey Bandy. The company address is 7116. Would you need a personal address? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, whatever.
Company address, okay. 7116 Regal Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37918.
Thanks.
So again, I'm here on behalf of Apex Bank. They were on a tight timeline when they were opening this, and we've worked with them to kind of develop this sign. We've gotten standard code approval to include the gable area, I believe, and the square footage included with the building, and are proposing a sign that we think visually gives them more branding space given the size of their logo and the dimensions of their logo overall. I actually wish I'd printed out some more, but I have the alternative proposal here, which I don't think is really visually as appealing.
You can start passing it around.
Sure. So that would have yet to go through the development process, any codes process, but that sign is about 36 inches tall to meet that sign band area where the old home trust was. And as you can see visually, just doesn't make a lot of sense. Some of this is a function of their branding and keeping in standards with that. They are a bank which has federal branding standards that they have to meet, as well as trying to gain them some visibility. We've done engineering on and scoping out behind that gable area to see what the structure looks like and to make sure that that area can support the sign. All of that has kind of been done and approved as far as codes were. Obviously, we're in a historic overlay, so we need this commission's approval, but there's sort of a visual hardship, if you will, going on with their branding structure here. It's, as you can see from that, not very impressive to have a 36-inch by maybe 50-inch wide sign for that sign band. So I do understand we're asking for, a non-insignificant size variance here. But I'm hoping that you can see that the alternative is not exactly attractive, which I think is, at least to a point, the purpose of some of the commission's approval here.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments from anybody before we start? Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Hi, I've got a question.
Yes.
So do they have any branding options that they use that are horizontally oriented?
Right. We originally proposed some that were more in line kind of with what you'd see at Home Trust Bank. And as far as I understand it, they're not really allowed too much in the variance. Something about their Federal branding standards doesn't allow them to. I proposed both before and after we kind of got pushback on this one. And so my understanding is they've got to really kind of keep things dialed in. So no, in short.
So whenever they get a trademark from the federal government, they can't like alter it to the point that it's not what they originally were approved for?
That's my understanding, yes.
I can't quite see a reference of how much space 40 square feet is on this building. The existing sign, is that like at the maximum of 40 square feet?
Yes, it is. That sign was approved, I believe, at 40 square feet by the board.
I have just a comment for the applicant. I understand where you're coming from. I think you used the word common sense. Yeah, like I can see the common sense here, but we're bound by the guidelines and they're
Sure.
really clear.
Sure.
And so I'm inclined to agree with staff to deny this application.
Sure.
I agree with Commissioner Tillman. We talk about precedent a lot, and sometimes we do things that do set a precedent, but I think when we're going almost 2.5 times the size of what's allowed, I think that's way outside the boundaries of precedent, and I don't want to set that. I'll make a motion to deny based on staff approval.
I'll second.
Staff recommendation, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'd just say in terms of process, for the historic overlays, the staff have a pretty broad leeway to approve signs administratively that meet the design guidelines. So the applicant will have the opportunity to revise something and not necessarily come back in front of the board if it is within the design guidelines. So that hopefully will keep you guys moving forward.
We appreciate that, yeah.
And
Thank you for your time.
your cooperation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move to our next case, or last one, which is at 32 Market Square.
Okay. So this is a rooftop addition to 32 and 34 Market Square. The project includes the removal of the existing roof deck on 32 Market Square, which is Scruffy City Hall, and the construction of a new roof deck that extends across 32 and 34 Market Square. So you can see the structure of it in plan here and the two relevant buildings on the image as well. The structure features 3 levels of deck, with multiple stair levels on each side, and they step upwards in height towards the rear, which is the east of the building. There are various roof lines involved. There are several kind of height levels here, including a large flat roof wood pergola massing with horizontal steel cables that extends towards the front of the 34 Market Square section. So that's this structure here. And then a quarter round sort of section here moving towards the east, and then a half round massing that extends towards the rear of the building. So this is the section that's at the furthest rear of the building, and that extends 2 stories. And then parts of this, the 1.5 to 2 story addition on 32 Market Square will be enclosed with glass. The application also includes some rear elevation work. There's additional story of space on 32 Market Square and a roof deck that extends across those 2 buildings. You can see some additional kind of interior work on this building here. So past reviews of rooftop additions in Market Square have cited the standards, the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, and then some associated preservation briefs that recommend that rooftop additions are almost never appropriate for buildings that are less than 4 stories high. Both 32 and 34 Market Square are 2 stories tall. Rooftop additions have been approved in Market Square, including those on buildings less than 2 stories or less than 4 stories, but they've been approved on a limited basis when the additions can be proved to not be visible from the right-of-way. So there's some examples in the staff report from 2019, 2013, and 2010, where the precedent has been to deny permanent rooftop constructions, which would be visible from the ground level. And then at 32 Market Square, some of y'all might recall a separate application here in 2021 where a different applicant had proposed a rooftop addition just for Scruffy City Hall. It had a barrel vault roof, so it looked somewhat familiar to this. It was approved based on the applicant's renderings and line of sight drawings showing it would not be visible from the right of way. That hasn't been constructed. The applicant has provided a lot of 3D renderings and line of sight drawings, and I can show these as we discuss. I have them all pulled up here. The proposed rooftop structure, at least the flat roof pergola section, will be visible from the right of way. The renderings, some of them do use this Market Square pavilion and then the tree plantings to kind of obscure that addition. It's unclear if the full 2-story addition would be visible from points in Market Square. We can see that sort of quarter round section there. So it's the timber flat roof pavilion structure and then the half round roof line that would be visible from the right of way. There are references to the preservation brief in the staff report that say the addition should not be more than 1 story in height. It should be set back at least 1 full bay from the primary elevation of the building and should be minimally visible. This one is effectively 2 stories tall in elevation. It has multiple levels of roof decking and then glass storefront systems. It also notes that a rooftop addition is likely to be more compatible when it's surrounded by taller buildings. So 32 and 34 Market Square do benefit from being flanked by taller buildings. The full addition would be as tall as those adjacent buildings at its tallest point and in kind of flat elevation. Guidelines recommend that new additions are differentiated from the existing building and compatible with materials, features, scale and proportion, size, and massing. The addition has multiple conflicting roof lines and roof massings along with multiple levels of stairs and decking. It is complex and will detract from the simple design of the 2 flat roof vernacular commercial buildings. So staff's recommending postponement of 6F25HC to allow the applicant to propose a rooftop addition that is recessed further towards the rear of the building, just aiming to be less visible or not visible at all from the right of way with a roof line and overall design that's more compatible with the character of the buildings in the district.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins, do you have any comments?
Absolutely. Logan Higgins, 133 South Gay Street. I'll start off by saying that I do hope that you all postpone this. Please don't approve it today. But so a few things that we kind of wanted to get this in and get this ahead of you before you all, and even though we were still trying to work through some of the details, just because we wanted to get initial feedback. I think that the project itself for the scale is kind of big for sure. And so we really wanted to be able to have this conversation and get your all's feedback as we're still trying to tweak some of the design features. As Lindsay mentioned, this previous, at least 1, maybe 2 other designs have been proposed for this building, the Scruffy City Hall building in the past. The difference here is that the owners of that building have since purchased the building next to them, or I may have owned it at the time, but they've decided that they want to go across both buildings and use that full space, which is really makes sense when you get a scale of the size and how busy that business is. So the couple things that I want to clarify, as pointed out, the Market Square guidelines don't have anything specifically about rooftop designs, unlike some of our other guidelines that do specify and reference the national parks briefs a little bit more directly. So we've tried to look at those, the national parks briefs, as much as we can with this. Of course, there's site-specific conditions for every project, especially in historic. And with this, we definitely are trying to be as minimal as possible while still giving them sufficient space to run the business up there. So the number of stories that we're proposing is technically, I guess you could say technically 2. It's because, and you can kind of see this in the rear elevation, the 2 buildings have very different roof heights. So on the more northern building, so on that rear elevation, the building on the right has a much higher roof line. We're not proposing a story under that. The one on the left slopes down significantly more, and we are proposing putting bathrooms under there to minimize how much space we're using on the main roof addition, because with extra square footage, we have to have extra bathrooms. So that's some of the overview of what you're looking at right now. A little bit about what we're working on, changes that we're in the process of making and we'll come back with next month. The height of this was originally placed based on the corner building, 36 Market Square, I believe it is. The intent there was the 2 buildings that we're building over, neither of those have an elevator. The building on the corner has an elevator owned by the same owners. The plan originally was to utilize that elevator for the service of this addition. And so you can see in our floor plan there, on the top, there's a door that goes into 36 Market Square and would use that for egress and elevator access. We've since come to the conclusion that to properly use that elevator would conflict with how they want to utilize the space up here. To meet ADA, we would essentially need to move the main entrance of the roof deck over to where that elevator is. It would
You have 1
be a
minute left.
big change.
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So we are going to be coming back with a change that includes an elevator coming up from Scruffy City Hall. And with that, our expectation is that the entire addition will come down a little bit lower because we won't need to be meeting that top floor of 36 Market Square. There may be some change with the fact that there will be an elevator coming up. It might be slightly visible, the top of that. We're certainly trying to minimize that and can take a second look at the pergola and how we can bring that back and make that less visible in the quarter round. So with that, I really wanted to get your all's thoughts and feedbacks on this moving forward and what you all would like to see us take a look at.
Okay, so you did say the owners of Scruffy City building also own this building where Earthbound is and the building on the corner.
Yes.
Okay, and then they had put in a proposal, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. Were you the applicant for that? Okay. And you're saying that you already know that the height is going to come down because of the non-use of the elevator that you were thinking about using?
Correct.
Okay, and then the staff presented a lot of findings. Did you review those? Okay, did you have any concerns about any of those?
No, I think the big thing that I would be curious to hear your all's thoughts on is the phrase minimally visible. You know, that's kind of hard to define. So we just getting your all's feedback on what that would look like on this site, I think would be our biggest goal.
The new elevator that you said that you guys were thinking about putting in, you said something about the visibility of it. Where will it?
So would you care to go to the floor plan page? Okay, so if you look kind of dead center of the floor plan, there's a staircase that comes up from below. Yep, perfect, right there. That's where we expect it to be coming up. We're gonna have to redo that staircase to wrap around it. We can't really put the elevator in the back of the building because you can't ask people who need an elevator to go all the way to the back of the building to use it. So it does need to be closer to main access. So that's kind of a sweet spot where it hopefully won't be visible, but there may be a little bit of visibility with it coming up right there. But it's not so far back that it's sending someone, essentially through a back door.
Okay.
Sorry. Nothing really governs the location of where that elevator has to be. You can put it wherever you like or whatever works. You would just want appropriate signage.
Yeah, and part of what the layout of that building is it's like there's a big stage audience space. So our concern is that, let's say there's an event, a concert or something happening, we don't want to ask someone with a wheelchair to have to navigate through all of that crowd to get back there, but totally understand.
I have a question for staff. Should we consider the pavilion a permanent condition in a historic sense, as in is it within the governance of this body or something similar?
That's an interesting question. I think you guys have the capacity to make that interpretation. The Historic Zoning Commission would review if were that pavilion removed or reconstructed, the Historic Zoning Commission would review that now because the overlay does cover the whole thing. I guess it's a question of, is any structure like that permanent? I know Market Square has had a wide variety of constructions over the years, the mushroom caps, and then and so there have obviously been changes to that pedestrian space, but as of right now, there aren't any plans to remove or alter or modify that pavilion.
Thank you. Because I'm looking at your really impressive sightline work, very thorough. You've got a very large right-of-way with lots of different perspectives. That pavilion blocks it in a lot of places, but what my question is leading at is that pavilion could change easily, and then if we're looking at, we can't remove the pavilion because it's doing some important blocking work for, we can't exactly put that burden on it. The trees, definitely not a permanent condition, even though they do obscure it. We're one summer storm from removing those. This could all go back to a fish market, and that may be within the historic guidelines. That would help you a lot with your vantage points.
I really appreciate you asking that because that's something we discussed a lot internally and you can see in our visibility diagrams, we showed the trees, but made them translucent so that you can see that without the trees, it is still visible. And the pavilion was a thing that we grappled with as to whether, do you view how permanent is any structure that blocks visibility? So we can, and there is a sight line diagram that shows not the perspective, it's not a rendering, but it shows the lines. And you can kind of see how without the pavilion, you could see a little bit of the top there.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I've got another question that may not be that relevant. You don't have to answer it if you don't want. Have you done any structural assessments for this addition on that building? Because this seems like a lot to ask of these older two-story buildings.
Especially with that live load, when you said something about you have a stage up there and you're going to have a lot of people. That caught my attention too.
There may be a way to...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I ask because there may be a Venn diagram of shared between not visible, smaller, and not have to pour new footings for this building. I'm just curious if that's part of your process here or not.
Yeah, and it's actually part of how we came to what you're seeing now. The previous version that y'all saw a few years ago at the time, the owners did not want to use any steel. So in order to accomplish that, the addition itself, there may have even been an iteration after it was approved where they said, okay, no steel, and it just got a lot smaller to, in order to avoid that. So they came to terms with the fact that they're going to have to install steel to support the structure. And, anyone who has dealt with existing buildings before is going to realize how complicated this is going to be. That the plan, despite how, again, complicated this is going to be to cut holes and drop the steel in vertically and not disrupt what's down below. So yeah, we have been, we've got a structural engineer involved and are looking at, the implications of that and how that's going to play out.
One thing on the interior, Logan, you've sorted out the ADA issues with all the different deck levels, right? And it might just be the rendering there, but that ramp the slope looks really high on it to me.
I don't.
But you're good. You've worked all that out. You've got your ramps and everything.
We're in the process of working that out.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a ramp. If there is a ramp in one of these, it's probably not accurate because this was like a first pass schematic that we developed enough to be able to take it to the engineers and take it to the city and have these conversations. With the elevator change, that's going to change a lot. But yeah, that is a big part of what will be different next time is solving some more of those.
Yeah, that's not our purview, but I just noticed that. Well, as Lindsay said, I was here when this case came before us, whenever it was, and the line of sight to me is minimal. I appreciate Scott and Bernadette always pushing the boundaries. We need people like them. I like it. I don't have a problem with it. I think that the barrel replicates the barrel on the pavilion very well. And I mean, so what if you see a little bit of it? I mean, it's scruffy, so keep it scruffy.
I have some questions about the materials being proposed to be used. So you listed storefront glass, wood paneling, siding, steel cable, and timber. And the guidelines say that the material should be compatible with what's existing. And I would like to see references to those materials on the block to make sure that it is compatible. Do you know of any offhand that use steel cable or this kind of wood?
Well, the steel cable is just with the trellis. That's I don't know of that being a historic material used at all. The heavy timber, of course, is very common in historic buildings, timber structures, and then storefront glass. We're, of course, showing more than what you would see in a building built, a historic building, but still, this is being downtown. Storefront is very common for historic buildings, even if at a different level. And then the other factor here is the way we've looked at the guidelines being, everything that's built should be a building of its time, and new construction should be clearly different from historic compatible, but it should not look like it's trying to replicate. So when we have looked at this and thought about compatibility with materials, we've kind of interpreted that more as materials that aren't going to like pop in a different way than, trying to look more for materials that will kind of blend with the brick into the heavy amounts of wood. And then the storefront is kind of how we've thought through that. And then the trellis could be a different material. We've just tried to think of a way to create some outdoor space that's shaded. So,
Thank you.
but we will get some more examples for our when we come back with references to that.
Okay, if there are no more questions or comments, do we want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to postpone per staff recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we're finished with our level 2 cases. We do have other business. This is related to a historic overlay request at 2515 North Central Street.
All right, so as a reminder, the zoning code references the significance and integrity criteria from the National Register of Historic Places as the standards for historic landmark overlay, and the Historic Zoning Commission is responsible for assessing if the property meets these criteria. So this H overlay request is for a craftsman bungalow on North Central Street, built circa 1925, that is significant for embodying the distinctive characteristics of a type and period of construction. The house has been owned by the Watson family for all 100 years of its existence. It was designed by Harrison Watson and built with the help of his cousin, who ran a nearby furniture business. Harrison was a carpenter and worked for Southern Railroad. His son, Leo, who was also a carpenter, renovated the house in the 1950s and 1960s, notably covering the original woodlap siding and asbestos shingles. The house features extant craftsman details such as 3/1 double-hung wood windows, wide eave overhangs, a fully front porch with tapered columns on brick piers, gable-filled brackets, a low-pitched side gable roof, and wooden doors that were handmade by Leo Watson. The house is at the edge of the historic Oakwood neighborhood, and North Central Street has properties within the Happy Holler and Emery Place National Register districts. There are several historic structures on this block built between 1900 and 1975 that characterize the historic mix of uses along the thoroughfare. The applicant is an elderly woman who is not in good health, and she wants to protect the house from demolition and encourage its adaptive reuse as a commercial structure. I met with her and her daughter to document the house and their family history while I was preparing the designation report. The family ran multiple businesses out of the house, and Leo Watson was a well-known restaurant owner who had diners along North Broadway. His wife, Agnes, taught at Fulton High School for over 20 years. The designation report goes through this family history and the architectural details more thoroughly, but I'm happy to answer any questions. They intend to use the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation with additional guidelines requested by the owner, which you can see here. So evaluating the property using the National Register of Historic Places 7 aspects of integrity. The house retains its integrity of location as it remains in the original location where it was constructed. It also retains its integrity of design as it has not been modified with additions or other major alterations. The house was renovated during the 1950s with small repairs in the past couple of decades. However, the mid-century renovations have acquired their own significance and the character-defining features are intact, although some are covered by synthetic materials. Thus, it also retains its integrity of materials and feeling as a circa 1925 craftsman bungalow on a commercial corridor at the edge of the historic Oakwood neighborhood. The skill of the carpenters who designed, built, and lived in the house is evident in details such as the carved wooden doors, giving the house integrity of workmanship. So for these reasons, staff recommends approval of the landmark historic overlay for 2515 North Central Street, recognizing that the property meets criteria for the historic overlay zone.
Thank you, Melinda. I guess we just have discussion about this. Okay, commissioners, what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask if there's anyone present here from the public or an applicant to speak. I'm guessing no.
Yeah, the applicant actually regrettably just had to move into assisted living yesterday. So her and her family are not available to come to the meeting. But I can answer any questions. I worked really closely with them.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate what they did here and wish them the best. It's a difficult transition. And thank you, Melinda, for your work in this. This is really impressive.
Thank you.
So what's our role basically here?
You guys will, provided you agree with the staff recommendation, you'd make a motion to approve the overlay based on that recommendation. And then the Historic Zoning Commission's recommendation is sent to the Planning Commission. So the
Okay.
Planning Commission reviews the rezoning request for that formal historic overlay. And then that actually goes to council too, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what you'll use is your package that you present to us plus our approval or whatever our recommendation is. and
Yes,
then- Okay.
it's, yeah, the rezoning's going to be heard at the Planning Commission on July 10th. And so we'll have a staff report that goes with it, along with our memo, and, we'll reference in the staff report y'all's decision, because the Planning Commission, that's not what they do, and so they're probably going to trust your recommendation.
Okay. Do we have any motions?
Yeah, I agree with what Commissioner Tillman said as well put. Thank you, Melinda. Very, very good job. I'd make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Approved. Great job. Okay, I think this is the end of our monthly meeting. We shall adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.